get picked up somewhere. And again, just to keep track of what they're doing, and some other ways might give you some ideas of some places where you need to be. TripAdvisor, which I'm sure is either you probably have a love-hate relationship with them. It's one, looking at where you rank with your competitors, and there's a lot of, we've always, how can you influence TripAdvisor? Some people are going in and putting in their own reviews or putting in reviews against competitors, which isn't exactly probably the most ethical thing in the world. But one thing you can do that is part of the site is to post a management response. And we encourage every single one of our clients to do this, because I think if you look at the impact of human nature, if someone goes in there and they're about to write a bad review, but they see that the management responds to every single one, they might be a little less likely to, completely burn you in there and give you a 1 star. So, as well as when people are looking and researching the property, if you don't have a great ranking, but they look at it and they see that you have posted a management response to each of them, good or bad, I think that's, can help your property a lot, especially if you've undergone a renovation or improved something. You definitely want to be in there talking about those things, because that will help you eventually in the long run. And that was my quick presentation. Hopefully you've got some tools to take away that can help you define your competition.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. A lot of tools, and then it just goes into the subject. There's a lot of things. I know from looking out, I have the pleasure of being able to look out forward and seeing, head nodding versus glazed looks as to what this is. There is a variety of people in the audience, and I remind myself that yesterday, speaking to somebody from Cancun, where I don't speak Spanish, and they're speaking English, and they're trying to understand market mediums with language variation and, of course, cultural variation and such. So there are those of you that are very much involved with this, and then you're nodding your head saying, yeah, that's a neat idea, that's a good tool. And there's others of you that are like, what's a link? So there's a whole spectrum of it. The idea, please, is to understand that with the limitation of time, the idea of having it at a website where you can download the presentations and having the contact information of all of the speakers, I've asked that all the speakers make themselves available, not just during the conference, but even afterwards, to be able to get clarification on some things that may have caught your eye, but in fact you don't know enough about yet to ask a question about yet. How can I really use it? Example like Google Alerts, I use that all the time. Not just for our own companies, our own properties, but also for all my competitors, because now I have somebody actually going out there and finding this stuff and sending it to me and saying, hey, did you know? And not all of it's correct, because you're using keywords. Sometimes things come to you and they're not related to you, but it's better to at least know it than not to have known it. So even simple little tools like that can help define how and things are being perceived by your business online. Did I get you all set? Yeah. Ryan, I had the privilege of actually seeing Ryan. He moderated and did a presentation at the TIA, I think it was. Yeah. And I just was caught up with the fact that what he was doing and how he's doing it, and I'm going to let him do the whole introduction of what he does and how he does it, is fascinating, because I do like this much of what he does, and he does this much, and the results he'll be more than able to tell you about, but it's pretty cool. Anyway, Ryan.
Thank you. Well, I think Loren's being a little bit too modest there. We all know that, a lot of people are into fantasy football. I think Loren, fantasy football for him is all this search stuff and terms and all that kind of stuff. We're in Miami. When I was just looking around the room, I caught 5 people dozing off, so I'm sure everybody was out pretty late last night. So we'll try to keep it lively. Actually, the one Loren was talking about, I had an hour and about 50 minutes to present, so I had to kind of chop and cut and get this down to about 15 minutes, which is very tricky to do. So I'm going to try to go fast, and if there's things you guys want to drill down on afterward, I'll be around. I have some flyers here as well. We're going to review where we came from. I think one reason Loren wanted me to go last is because I can kind of tie in some of the stuff that these guys just talked about, and these guys were able to drill down on some really interesting things, and I'll just kind of try to give a little bit of a perspective of how to include some of the things they're doing with some of the other things that are out there. And in order to do that, I think you have to understand, where we came from, where we are now. We're going to talk about something that's very new called podcasting. Quick show of hands, how many people can give me an definition of what podcasting is without using the term iPod in your definition? 1. Okay. 2. Great. So we still had more people that fell asleep than can answer that question. Discuss how you can keep up. We talk a lot about having an interactive strategy for this new digital age, and then we'll understand another new term. We're actually in the last couple weeks, Loren just kind of coming out with this term, travel convergence. So even Loren hasn't seen this. Review where we came from. You know, when the web first started, it was brochureware, websites. Then we kind of moved to e-commerce sites. You had mass media, TV, radio, and print. You had a few people and companies controlling what everybody was exposed to. So you got your news from, you know, NBC and CNN and the New York Times, and that was about it. And you'll see in a minute how things have changed. The wife plan, the family vacation, we all know, you know, how long that took with the brochures. And of course, travel agents and GDS. You have to really understand this stuff to understand the next slide here. Now you have very interactive websites, and it's also not just a home computer anymore. So there's PDAs, there's cell phones, there's Wi-Fi, there's high speed. So you can do a lot more things now with video and all those kinds of things you couldn't do just, you know, 5 years ago. It's like I said, it's not just a website anymore. So a lot of people say, you know, I'm the e-commerce manager, or I'm the website manager or director of internet, and that's great. And what we're saying now is that's kind of so, you know, 3 years ago, because there's a lot more things out there. And if that's your job, it's kind of your responsibility to keep up with all this other stuff, because if you're not doing it, who else is? I mean, at Loren's company, there's probably nobody else besides Loren that cares about this kind of stuff and is up late at night, you know, researching all these new little tools. So you have to move out of, you know, where you came from, which was just managing your website, to looking at email. You know, everybody knows Skype. You can make free phone calls over the internet. A lot of people are now spending a lot of time on sharing photos. That's why Yahoo just bought a site called Flickr. Fantasy football, you know, where on a Monday morning, where's everybody online? At the office, they're all, you know, checking out their fantasy football. My brother and I actually manage a team together, and he's in San Diego, and I'm kind of all over the place. But you know, 2 or 3 times a week, we chat on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes about our team and all that kind of stuff. So there's, you know, where are people spending time? It's not just you know, static websites anymore. Web chat. I mean, I get my news from Yahoo or my MSN web chat. I'm on both. There's video iPods. This Christmas will be the big Christmas for the video iPod. Evite, and I've got a double date in there, and actually I kind of put this in there as a joke for TIA, but it literally happened yesterday. My girlfriend sent me an email to my BlackBerry and said, hey, honey, we're having a double date, and the other couple sent us an Evite to say, hey, can you know, we're trying to get 4 people together, and we had to send an Evite. It's a little crazy. We have passwords. My dad has passwords for his passwords. So, you know, he's got so many sites out there that he actually has a whole list, and he has a password-protected list for his passwords. Podcasting and blogging, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. You can watch your home television programs from your laptop at any airport. You know, crazy stuff. Community sites are the new mall. Everybody knows about MySpace. User-generated content. Everybody wants their own radio station and their own hotel reviews. So really, we talked about TripAdvisor. I mean, everybody is a journalist now. You know, when someone's staying at your property, they could be doing a podcast. They could be, you know, Loren's recording this thing right here with this video camera. He could take this to your property, and he could post it on the web. So you really have to be just cognizant of what's going on. I could spend an hour on this slide, so I probably should just keep going. A podcast is a lot of things. It's an audio blog or an audio RSS feed. RSS stands for really simple syndication. So let me just explain that real quick in case anybody doesn't know. Really just think of it as it can be like a news feed. So if you've got events coming up at your property or your destination, you can incorporate some of the stuff from your event calendar and your press releases, and you can put them into what's called an RSS feed. And then there's sites out there that are kind of pulling, constantly checking your feed and saying, do you have anything now? Do you have anything now? Do you have anything now? So rather than signing up for an email and getting an email once a week on Wednesdays, every 5 seconds, they're checking to see if you guys have posted something new. And all this stuff is related, as you'll see in a minute. A podcast can be a lot of things. It can be audio. 88% of podcasts right now are audio, again, because not a lot of people have the video iPod, and I think that'll change this Christmas. There will be more video, I think, in 2007. A podcast can just be a talk show or a music program. It's basically a radio show or series, just like a TV show. You can learn a foreign language or get info. You can listen to a podcast in a lot of places. This is probably one of my biggest pet peeves, is that everybody says, I don't have an iPod, what the hell's a podcast, or all those kinds of things. You don't need an iPod or an MP3 player. You can listen to a podcast or watch a podcast on your computer, at a website, in iTunes, in many other audio directories similar to iTunes. Of course, you can download it to your iPod or have it automatically downloaded to your iPod, which is kind of takes all the effort out of it. It's very easy. You can also listen on the regular radio stations. There's a radio station in San Francisco that's 100% podcast content. So they have a podcast about wine for an hour, then they have a podcast about alternative music for an hour, then they have a podcast about sports for an hour. And so it's really just, all a podcast is just a radio show that can be broadcast in different spots. XM and Sirius satellite radio have like 4 hours per day of podcast-only content. You can listen in your car. I have a little kind of a thing, it's called iTrip. It's like $25. It goes on your iPod, and then you can actually, instead of listening to the radio stations, you can listen to your podcasts. You can listen on your phone, on your PDA. You can also listen on somebody else's podcast, which is really neat, and I think that's why, one of the reasons why podcasting will be way bigger than blogging is the whole sharing aspect of it. I mean, we do a podcast, and people can take clips of our podcast and put them on their own podcast. Advertisers are starting to embrace this new media here. Just a couple of quick things here. Spending on blog, podcasts, and RSS advertising is projected to climb another 145% this year to $50 million. So this is not just me up here saying, hey, you guys should understand what podcasting is. You can see the numbers here. Podcast advertising, $3 million last year, but it's going to be $327 million by 2010. So some of us may want to think about switching industries. TV ratings fell to their lowest level in TV history. Primetime viewers, 32% in 2005, 55% in 1980. So we work with a lot of clients that are tour operators or old school kind of airline, the banking business, old school type guys, the bankers of the travel business. And a lot of them are still saying, do we have to be on the internet, or what is this? Obviously there's people in the room here that are way more advanced than that, but this kind of a thing I think really just drives some of that stuff home. Here's an example of a travel podcast. Travel Spike, our company, we actually launched the first luxury travel podcast in iTunes earlier this year. It's called JourneyPod. If you do keyword JourneyPod in iTunes or at journeypod.com, you can actually subscribe for free to our show, and every week we interview 4- and 5-star hoteliers. We talk with celebrity chefs. We feature different destinations. We've recently featured Aruba, St. Martin, Miami, and many others. It's also this particular lifestyle brand, totally different than Travel Spike. It's fun, it's hip and trendy, it's a little bit younger. So we're going to the Sundance Film Festival in a couple of weeks. We're going to be back down here in Miami for the Food Network South Beach Wine and Food Festival. We were just on the red carpet at the Emmys. We were also at the Country Music Awards when Faith Hill did that whole big face thing backstage for when Carrie Underwood won the award. So we're covering kind of travel with a new twist. We're fusing together travel, fashion, entertainment, and music with a pinch of style. So you can check that out just as an example of some of the travel podcasts that are out there. Other good ones, everybody's familiar with PBS star Rick Steves. He has a great podcast. The guys at SeaWorld and the San Diego Zoo are doing some interesting stuff. Indianapolis Tourism Board has a great video podcast. So those are just some other examples out there. How can your travel organization keep up with all this stuff? Your entire company needs to embrace new technology and better use the internet, and that applies to everything you're doing, not just marketing. Have a digital or interactive strategy that encompasses all the different things we were just talking about. We ask a lot of our clients, and they say, "Yeah, we're on Google." Well, as you just heard from these two guys, there's a lot more to it than you guys are on Google or you're buying keywords for $1.50 a click. There's organic, there's pay-per-click, and all those things. So make sure you're understanding all of that. And one thing that I will say too is, unless you're Loren, and even Loren, works with these two guys, it's very, very labor intensive, and there's a lot of things to keep up with. So I would highly recommend that you, seek out experts in the space like these guys, and we do a lot of work in this area as well. And there's other companies that can definitely help you. It's kind of a tall task to just have your director of e-commerce be responsible for all this stuff, because that is obviously not a one-man job. Use email marketing. That would be internal and external. A lot of people have a newsletter, and they think email marketing is that's it. That's only kind of half the story. You can obviously fish in other ponds, and we do a lot of work with our clients, sponsoring golf travel databases, luxury travel databases, leisure travel databases, last-minute travel databases, and there's different types of databases and different websites that are out there that you can work with in order to get people to your site and to get people to sign up for your newsletter. So it's not just having a newsletter, how many people are on your internal list, and what are you doing to grow that list? Some people only care about driving traffic to their website, which is great, but another performance metrics really needs to be, we had 60,000 people on our internal newsletter, and now we have 100,000. You and your web experts need to monitor and manage your brand across the digital landscape. Like these guys just said, look at things like TripAdvisor. There's lots of blogs and podcasts, email, other sites, newsletters, new media that are out there, and they're talking about your hotel, they're talking about your destination. Are you listening? Make decisions at internet speed, not airline speed. I'm an old US Air guy. I used to run the Caribbean for them, and if I had an idea, I had to go through about 4 meetings, and it would take 4 weeks to actually do something, and obviously the internet doesn't work that way. Digital PR is also kind of a new term that's popping up, that we're doing a lot of stuff in this space. Basically, it's, there's newsletters, there's electronic magazines called e-zines, there's travel sites, directories, blogs, podcasts, RSS feeds. Complement your offline PR with some online advertorials and featured destination programs across the web. So this is kind of new, cutting-edge stuff, and it's all related to what we've been talking about, as you'll see. Involve and educate other departments. Have a team or a committee at your hotel or at your destination. So again, e-commerce started with just the web and leisure guys, and you can definitely apply it to your leisure groups and your meetings and conventions. And make sure you educate these other departments that may or may not be using the web as much as they probably should be. So that's why if you had this kind of internal group that's like your e-commerce type guys, you can really keep up with the stuff a little bit easier. We have a service called Travel Search Engine Optimization, which goes one step further. It's we've combined our travel expertise in online travel and e-commerce and booking engines, and tied that in with podcasts and RSS feeds, social networking and blogs, and to really kind of go that extra mile. And this is what I was talking about before. I mean, podcasting, blogs, RSS feeds, audio search engine optimization, basically doing search engine optimization for your audio, for your video, for your podcast, travel SEO, digital PR, social networking, the MySpace stuff. And everybody knows MySpace, and these guys and myself, I do the same thing. We say MySpace or we say Google. It's just because there's not enough time to list the 20 other MySpaces and the 20 other Googles, like an MSN, whoever it is. And so these are just kind of very general terms here. And then email marketing. All of this stuff is related, and we're seeing what we're calling now a lot of convergence or travel convergence, because all these things are really touching, so affecting each other. So if you're doing something with blogs or podcasts, it's affecting your PR, it's affecting your social networking, and they're all related. And if you can tie these things all together and leverage them, that's where we're seeing some really great results. Real quick, at Travel Spike, we're now calling ourselves travel convergence experts. I know it's a mouthful. A little bit about us. We only work with travel companies. We help hundreds of travel clients exceed their interactive goals. We always put our travel spin on everything we do. We help destinations, hotels, airlines keep up with the digital times. And we're pioneers with new media like podcasting, email marketing, and travel search engine optimization. I'm actually doing a session later today. I think it's one of the last sessions, and we'll drill down even more about podcasting, how you guys can produce your own podcast, how you can sponsor podcasts, get more involved with audio and video and blogs and RSS feeds. So again, there wasn't enough time here to really explain it fully, so I just wanted to give you a little taste of what that kind of stuff is. There's some of our clients, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Actually, you guys have been, I mean, considering the fact that if you're thinking that you're not on top of the curve or you're not ahead of what's going on and you want to be automatically in front of the line, talk to these guys. Obviously, because, I mean, Ryan, between any of them, between Mike being able to go over and handle the broad spectrum of what he can provide in the sense of services where if you don't know where to start, obviously AdGuru is a very rich software to use when it comes to trying to define your competitive space and what to do with it and how to define yourself in it. And then just Ryan, Jason, if you want to start getting yourself out in front, I mean, what better way to stand out into the new things that are happening online than to be in the podcast space, video casting, and getting into the travel space in the mediums that are being used now, not just going to the traditional website and seeing what you can read, but really interacting with the experience of it. And he's right, we are videoing it. So it will be on video and a link. And like I said, if you want to get the website where it's going to be listed in the presentations to be downloaded and the video to be watched, like a YouTube video, click and play. Then bring your card up. That'll also register you to win the flash drive. Meanwhile, we have time for questions. So, who would? Yes, please.
Two of your speakers mentioned paying about $1.50 for a click on a keyword. That sounds to me to be extremely expensive. What sort of travel products or companies would be willing to pay $1.50 for a click?
Well, that's why I included that chart that kind of shows you your return, because then you can plug in. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend if you get $80 a night, you're not going to buy a $1.50 keyword. But if you're getting $400 a night, it may be worth paying $1.50 a keyword based off the return there. So it just depends. There's kind of part of, and Rich may be able to speak better to this, but that in Google, when you start up a keyword campaign, the way the rankings and the way that things are is that you almost want to pay a lot to be in the top spot to get the clicks for a period of time, because they base a lot of your clicks on relevancy. So if you go in and you're just doing a small amount and you always end up in third, fourth, fifth, sixth spot and you're not getting that many clicks as the 1 or 2 spot is, Google's going to see you as not very relevant to that keyword term. So you're going to want to pay a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Also with certain niche keywords, the conversion rates are much, much higher. So, like if you put in Playa del Carmen, a Canto Hotel and Suites, cheapest rate, that's your keyword. You may get 1 click a month. But you absolutely want to be the first thing that somebody types in that phrase sees. So that would be your $1.50 for that 1 keyword a month. You have a really good chance of that landing in a booking. Instead of like 60 to 1 or 700 to 1, whatever it is, I mean, you may be 10 to 1 on a keyword like that. So it's well worth it.
And again, the more relevant you get, the more your CPC will come down.
Right, that's very true. Your company, and also just give you some relevant relationship. Orlando hotels is going for over $9 a click right now, and the pharmaceutical companies, I think, are the worst at it. They're in the hundreds per click because they're a very defined market when it goes along. I'm sorry. Next question. Yes.
I was pretty much front and center and ahead of the curve of a lot of these things a few years ago, but then I was running a new resort and I didn't have a hell of a lot to do other than marketing. I could say I was at Google when it was 5 cents a click and this kind of thing, and I was doing really well with it and getting a lot of business. I think one thing that's very relevant to many of the people in the audience, I guess, and in this conference, is that a lot of us are small to medium-sized hotels with lots of other responsibilities. This stuff is incredibly labor-intensive. I'd love to get involved with the stuff where you can. I mean, Loren told me last year at this time, he said, "Oh, I've got 2,000 keywords." I'm like, Jesus. What else do you do? What else do you do? And in the real world, if you've got more than 50 keywords, you need to hire somebody to actually do this work. The real thing is, and that's my number one lesson for myself and for other hoteliers if you're into this is, if you have to work out the return on it, you need to hire somebody to do this. I mean, AdGuru, great software, but I would never have the time to use it.
It is what you get out of it by any means, but also too, I mean, not to endorse always going outside of your own internal ability to do this. I think the biggest thing I want to make sure everyone takes home is that regardless of your size, small being the key adjective to this, is that how can you afford not to at least try at some level that ever you're capable of, whether it's just a curiosity that you start with, or moving forward to see whether or not there's fertile soil for you. I mean, I mentioned this in the conversation yesterday. The brands are moving to online advertising. Starwood, almost 90% of their entire media spend for next year is online. IHG, Marriott are all in the 80 percentiles. So they realize that producing and manufacturing four-color brochures in the quantities of 10, 15, 60,000 are no longer the viable medium to get information to people. So it's more of a question of reverse of how can you afford not to. And you do have a very critical choice. There is a juncture in the road, as you just pointed out. Do I try to maintain this level with all that I have to do at my property for whatever size, or do I seek outside help in which to adopt it beyond? My best suggestion is to start it first yourself, to become aware of how to ask the really relevant questions and to understand the concept of how all this works, how an ad guru can help you, how Mike's company can help you, or John's company, how getting in front of the curve with podcasting and getting your voice out there in front of eyeballs with Travel Spike. At least get it started. And then if you find that there's relevant value to it, which I guarantee you will, then move to the next decision of whether you want to externalize that and go and get somebody to take care of it.
And one thing on that, when you look for an agency, find one that's going to be a good partner that understands the space. Because one of the things we run into, and I again, being at the forefront of a lot of this as well, especially when I was at Wyndham, we were buying, I don't even know how many keywords, but our annual spend was $1 million. But what we ran into is that we would be buying keywords for our Miami Beach property, say, and the property was sold out for the next 2 weeks. So there's a lot of things you want to be working with your agency as a partner. Look at your occupancy levels, see where you are, what's your booking window, your average length of stay, and all those things, and factor that in, which is part of what we do. We almost apply a revenue management type process to our keyword purchases.
Yes.
Is there like a website or so that we can go for reference? Let's say a TPI, like it was said, purchases my name, uses my name. What can I do to take it back? Or is it free for them to do it? Are there any regulations?
Buying your keyword term?
Yeah, if a TPI purchases my name, like it was said in the presentation, what can I do to get it back? Or is it free for them to get it?
If it's trademarked, Google has a complaint procedure online. Or you're saying that somebody has your domain keyword or domain trademark?
No, I'm not saying it's happening right now with me, but for example, when I start purchasing keywords, what happens if a TPI has already purchased my hotel name and pay-per-click placement or something like that?
Yeah, I can answer that. We actually have a product designed to do just that. It's a trademark monitoring tool. So yeah, Expedia is one of our biggest customers with it, for instance. So is Ordnance. And the way it works is you will tell us, hundreds of keywords that you're interested in monitoring, as well as your brand name and so on. And then we go through our database and we look through something like 3 million keywords a day. And if anybody's using your terms in their ads, or if they're even bidding on your terms, we give you reports to show you who they are and to what extent they're bidding on your terms. And pretty quick. And it's just a 5-minute task a day to look at it.
There is also a publication that just came out with HSMAI. That is, it has legal ramifications if somebody is bidding on your brand work. One of the biggest and strongest suggestions I can give you is to contact your third-party distribution people. And when you get into this space and start advertising, ask them to stop the bidding on your name. Just send them a letter, send Expedia and send Travelocity, and tell them, please do not bid on my brand name.
Any contract that you do with Expedia or with Travelocity, anybody should be part of your contract.
Yeah, because 60% of their business is derived from selling through your name. And they may come back to you and say, oh, well, we're generating travel. That's great, please do that. Just don't sell me. I'll sell me, you sell coming to me. And ask them specifically to do that. And that savings value of not getting business through them because they acted as you is substantially huge. One of our hotels in Florida in October, which is an off-season, we diminished 1 percentage point the amount that the third parties were giving to us, and it represented over $20,000 in savings of commissions because we sold it through our direct channel, through our website, rather than through them, just by getting them off our name for that month. Questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is for Ad Guru. Someplace I saw statistics comparing the click-throughs on organic compared to pay-per-click. Statistics I saw, it's about a 50-50 split. Would you agree with that, or do you see any trend one way or the other?
Yeah, I would disagree with that. In fact, I just ran a study. We found that the, are you talking about click-through rate or the cost per conversion? Well, click-through rate, I mean,
Click-through rate compared to organic.
okay, if you're looking at just traffic, there's sort of a benchmark that says most mature sites will see about 70% of their traffic from organic. However, what I've seen time and time again is that the paid search will convert at about 3 times the rate, maybe 3.5 times the rate. So that traffic's about 3.5 times more valuable to you. So, I mean, you guys might have
More
more.
volumes, obviously.
It is in the sense that you remember too that with the organic search results, and if you ever look at the top right-hand corner for Google being the best example, there could be millions of results based on your inquiry. You know, you could be looking for a hotel, but there's 10 million results. Anything of a press release, any reference thereof, anything referred to by, linked to by, anything that Google found in relationship to your query comes up. So the benefit of the paid performance is that you're trying to create a relevancy of why you're advertising with those terms. So your relevancy for the inquiry, that sounds very technical, doesn't it, is higher because you're trying to put yourself in front of the person that's using those terms than you are for the organic results that are coming up because of the inherent relevance of content.
Real quick, we get this question actually a lot.